And so with them, I guess I would love to learn what was the beginnings of that, and how you got that? How did you?
It's a good question. So all my life, you know, I remember as a kid, like a teenager, I remember watching Obama speak on stage. Like, not like I didn't watch him live, but I remember the inauguration. I remember his political rallies. And we're not trying to get political here,
Of
folks.
course not.
This isn't a political statement. We're just talking about Obama's ability to speak. All right. Now I got to make the disclaimer. Opinions are my own. These are not the opinions of my company. These are my opinions. They're Abdi Muhammad's opinion. All right. So yeah, I remember watching Obama speak. I'm like, oh my God, that guy can speak. Like, it's so inspiring, so captivating. The way he tells a story, the way he motivates people. Watching the movie Gladiator, right? Or watching the movie 300. Just watching them speak to crowds of people. I'm like, wow, this is freaking cool. This is like a superpower to speak life into people, inspire them to action. I'm like, oh my God, I want to do that when I grow up. That was always in the back of my head.
Hmm.
And yeah, and as I'm getting older, I'm watching like Eric Thomas, as a teenager.
Hey, shout out to
And I'm
Eric.
talking, shout out to Eric Thomas, shout out to ET, the hip hop preacher. And this was like ET early on when he was like speaking at community colleges and classrooms and stuff. I think he still does that today, but I don't think nearly as much. I think he's doing a lot of other things. But shout out to the good brother. But yeah, man, I was watching him. And in college, I was like, all right, after graduating, I want to do more speaking engagements. And you know, for like 2 or 3 months, I was getting into it, and then I was like, ah, nah, I'm not qualified to speak on anything. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're not qualified. You know, Fell off for a few years, and then it wasn't until around like 2.5 years ago when I mustered the courage and I said, I want to speak, but I don't want to be someone who speaks on motivation. There
Hmm.
are motivational speakers out there, and shout out to them. Right? They have a role to play in our lives and on this earth. They have a community of people they need to service. But my goal is not to just motivate people, right? Because as you know, Aditan, right? Motivation is fickle. We can't rely on motivation to help us create the outcomes that we're looking for in life. And I don't want to be known as a motivational speaker. I told myself I want to be a thought leader within my space. So I want to be a thought leader in technology. And I also want to be a thought leader in leadership and communication, right? And eventually, spoiler alert, down the line, years from now, I want to retire from my tech career and teach leadership and communication full time because I believe the gap of leadership and communication will continue to widen as we adopt more technology, specifically AI. I think the need for folks to be very literate, to be effective communicators, it's going to go higher. It's going to go higher. You need to know how to talk to an artificial intelligence agent. You got to know how to talk to chat. You got to know how to talk with people. You got to
I
know
was
the
about to say.
risks of these, right? Like you got to know the risks of these technologies that you're using. You have to have the emotional intelligence and wherewithal, the wisdom, right? And that's what's going to be most important, right? The days of being a technologist and just hacking away at your keyboard, in the background, right? Those days are dwindling. I think more roles are going to require to be more emotionally intelligent, right? Because for example, if you can't effectively communicate to an AI agent, you can't effectively communicate or effectively prompt, something like a Chat GPT or Microsoft Copilot. No, this is not an endorsement. Although y'all are welcome to send the check whenever y'all feel comfortable
Right.
to, y'all are welcome to send the check. But no, this is not an endorsement. But yeah, like any generative AI tool that you might be using, right? You have to understand you got to be an effective communicator, and you're going to be working with people still, right? And I think for me, down the line, I want to teach leadership and communication, similar to Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Jocko Willink, John Maxwell's, and so many other phenomenal people, like the good people like Hafiz and Joe. Shout out to the
Absolutely.
good brothers,
That's
good
the
people like
same.
Hafiz and Joe, who've successfully built a community, continue to pour into many other leaders, across the world.
But I love them. I didn't know. Again, I love doing this because there's things I didn't know about people that I thought I knew pretty well. So that's great, man. Even just from the clips I've seen, I feel like your messages have been profound and genuine. Because again, we're to your point. We're now going back to an era of authenticity, which I love. Because again,
Yes.
look, we all got people we look up to. Like, I love listening to Hormozy stuff. Man's on a different level on levels and levels, right? So there's
Yeah,
obviously
he's on his
inspiration
own.
I
He's on
take.
his own level. That brother's
Right,
on his own level. He's
right.
shout out to
But
Hermosa, that man. Wow.
I love hearing to your point. It's more, I can appreciate when someone said, look, man, I got laid off. but here's how I bounced back. Here's what I did. Because that applies to a lot of people because we're going through an era of transition, a lot of uncertainty, and people just want to know that they're around other people, right? And I think social media, for better or for worse, look, I mean, we've learned right through through perception economics that you got to put yourself together. But there's a difference
Right.
between presenting yourself best versus also maybe over indexing on just the aesthetic of things and maybe not being real. And so we see a lot of people who
Exactly.
just over index on that, and someone will interpret that as that's a deficiency in them, but they're not competing against another human being, you know. And I guess that it's kind of it's cyclical. So I guess it's really important to find people that are real and use that as your sounding.
Yeah, bro. Like as you know, man, like the best leaders are relatable. They're relatable. You know, if you come off if you come off perfect, and you never share your losses, you never share your faults, you never share your shortcomings, you know, people are gonna think like you're like Mayweather. You have this perfect record, right? But I can say this: I don't doubt that at one point Mayweather got knocked out in sparring.
Of course.
Like this idea of you being perfect, you've never taken losses. No, 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 that doesn't exist, right? And I think for me, whenever I take advice from a leader or I try to learn from somebody, I always ask the question: is this person willing to share their battle scars
Mm.
to get to where they were trying to get to? And which is why I love watching, Hafiz. Shout out to Hafiz. Shout out to Joe Hines.